An abridgment of Thomas Manton's commentary on the Epistle of James chapter 3 verse 17a. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. James, having emphasized the dangers of false wisdom, now turns to describe the fruits of true wisdom, which he calls the wisdom that comes from heaven. The nature of wisdom is known by its source, and since this wisdom is from above, it reflects God's character and purposes. James lists its properties, each revealing the holiness and purity that should mark the believer's life. First and foremost, true wisdom is characterized by purity. The word pure in this context signifies something chaste and modest, free from both hypocrisy and uncleanness. Purity can refer to two things. One is freedom from mixture, such as wine that is unadulterated, and the other is freedom from filth, as in clear water. In this passage, purity refers to moral and spiritual cleanliness, untainted by sin or compromise. But as Proverbs 20 verse 9 asks, who can say, I have kept my heart pure? I am clean and without sin? The answer lies in understanding that purity, in this biblical sense, refers to both the inward state of the heart and the outward expression of one's life. True wisdom begins with a clean heart, and from this clean heart flows a life of purity. Jesus said, Blessed are the pure in heart, Matthew 5 verse 8. And the psalmist declares, Blessed are those whose ways are blameless, Psalm 119 verse 1. The heart must be free from sinful desires, and the life must be free from scandalous behavior. James exhorts his readers, Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded, James 4 verse 8. Purity is not just about avoiding outward sins, but also about cleansing the inner thoughts and intentions. Jesus condemned even the lustful glance, Matthew 5 verse 28, and Peter warns of those with eyes full of adultery, 2 Peter 2 verse 14. True Christians seek to abstain from sinful desires, 1 Peter 2 verse 11, and to put to death the misdeeds of the body, Romans 8 verse 13. In this way, both heart and life are aligned with God's holiness. True wisdom, then, will not tolerate either the stain of error or the stain of sin. Both are blots on a life of holiness. The way of God is called the Holy Commandment, while the way of the world is described as the corruption of the world, 2 Peter 2 verse 20. Jude 8 speaks of false teachers as dreamers who pollute their bodies, indicating that error and sin are both forms of defilement. True wisdom is marked by both truth and holiness. The Apostle Paul says that deacons must hold the deep truths of the faith with a clear conscience, 1 Timothy 3 verse 9. Just as precious wine is best kept in clean vessels, so too the truths of God must be held in pure hearts. Some may oppose doctrinal error, but remain enslaved to their sinful desires. It is as great a judgment to be given over to vile affections as to be given over to a vain mind. Jerome once remarked that some were heathens not in opinion but in behavior, and it was said of Julian the apostate that though he was a temperate man, he was a bitter enemy of Christ. True wisdom, however, aligns sound doctrine with holy living. As Paul exhorts, we must be sound in faith and fervent in love, Titus 2 verse 2. Faith and holiness must be matched, and this is the essence of pure wisdom. Purity is not only a matter of belief, but also of speech and conduct. Zephaniah 3 verse 9 speaks of God purifying the lips of his people. Our words should reflect the purity of our hearts, for as James has already warned, the tongue can corrupt the whole person, James 3 verse 6. Paul also condemns foolish talk and unwholesome talk, Ephesians 5 verse 4 and chapter 4 verse 29. True wisdom is evident when both word and deed are marked by purity. Moreover, true wisdom includes both evangelical and moral cleanness. It is not enough to abstain from obvious sins. Our hearts must be washed in the blood of Christ. The pure are those who believe that their sins are pardoned through Christ and are renewed by the Holy Spirit. There is both an external abstinence from sin and an internal cleansing of the conscience. As Zechariah 13 verse 1 promises, God opens a fountain to cleanse them from sin and impurity. Some may live outwardly moral lives, but neglect the deeper work of spiritual cleansing that comes through Christ. But true purity requires both justification and sanctification, the purging of guilt and the removal of filth from the heart and conscience. Hebrews 9 verse 14 and Hebrews 10 verse 22. Purity and true wisdom must be holistic, governing both our inner life and our outward actions. There is a tendency to separate what God has joined together. Some may focus on external behavior without addressing the condition of the heart, while others emphasize inward spirituality but neglect their public witness. But Hebrews 9 verse 14 reminds us that when the conscience is purged, we are then fit to serve the living God. Our first duty is to care for our own spirits, but we must also care for the purity of the broader community. Hebrews 3:12, 12:15. True wisdom manifests itself both in private holiness and in public reformation, ensuring that neither heart nor behavior is left unaddressed. Lastly, true wisdom avoids both real defilement and even the appearance of defilement. Paul exhorts the Corinthians, "Let us purify ourselves from everything that contaminates body and spirit." 2 Corinthians 7 verse 1. This refers not only to actual sin, but also to any association with sin that might compromise our testimony. Christians are called to abstain from every form of evil, 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 22, avoiding not only sin itself, but also any situation that might suggest complicity with evil. Jude 23 speaks of hating even the clothing stained by corrupted flesh, illustrating the need for a radical separation from anything that could defile our conscience or reputation. Bernard of Clairvaux wisely explained that true purity avoids both the substance of evil and its appearance. This pursuit of purity may be inconvenient or even mocked by the world, but as Deuteronomy 4 verse 6 states, "This will show your wisdom." The world may view such scrupulousness as foolish, but Paul reminds us that true wisdom is often regarded as foolishness by the world. 1 Corinthians 3 verse 18. To the world, wisdom is often defined by cunning and self-interest, but Christ calls his followers to a holy innocence. Matthew 10 verse 19. It is far better to be wise in grace and a fool in sin. Pursuing holiness brings us into conformity with God, which is the highest form of human excellence. In this, we find our true happiness and fulfillment. For blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Matthew 5 verse 8. And without holiness, no one will see the Lord. Hebrews 12 verse 14. In conclusion, James teaches us that the wisdom that comes from above is first of all pure. This purity encompasses every aspect of life: heart, mind, speech, and behavior. True wisdom manifests itself in a life of holiness, free from the stains of sin and error, and it leads us to both enjoy God and reflect His glory. This is the path of true wisdom, which calls us to live in purity, reflecting the character of God and striving for holiness in every area of our lives.